Hey everyone, today we're going to take a look at the ROG Crosshair X870E Glacial. Now, this board was announced at CES and is currently available in retail. All right, but we're going to take a quick look at the box contents. We're going to talk a little bit about how it differs from previous Glacials, and also give you guys a little look at just how much detail there is. I did post a short of this once I was at CES, but I didn't get to touch it and all that good stuff. So we're going to take a look at it, and we're going to kind of just roll with it as we go. All right, so I haven't opened this yet. You're going to see it at the same time as me firsthand. All right, so right away, we're going to open the box. Now, the box is going to be fairly like most of the other ROG boxes, right? You get your basics over here. This is probably not going to come out on camera too well because it's very white. And then you get the Glacial for those who dare, right? Right away, I noticed this is the foam packaging. Instead of a plastic cover, right, that kind of just form molded plastic, you're getting this foam. I like this. I think it's better than the plastic. Keeps more things in place, right? And then we get the Glacial itself, which is a very gorgeous board. And before we go into the board, we're going to take a look at the other box contents. This is very heavy, guys. Very, very heavy. All right. So normally there's a note here saying the top covers are magnetic. When handling motherboard, make sure not to grab top cover directly. Okay, we're going to go into that in a bit here. All right, so let's just open the contents here. All right, so normally we have the stuff underneath, but on this board we do not. We actually have a slide-out tray. For those of you that bought the previous two Glacials, the Z690, Z590, you remember it was a large kind of luggage-style box to an extent, and you can pull out, well, it kind of opened like a book, right? So let's take a look at what's at the bottom tray. This is actually a really nice presentation, by the way. I like how it pulls out. It's much nicer than what I would expect elsewise. Okay, so let's just start with a small box here. You'll notice everything is nicely packed, right? It's not kind of plastic bags everywhere. All right, you kind of get this presentation with the extremes. Let's see what this is here. So this is going to be a fan. I can see that. And let's just unbox this portion here. So this is a Glacial. I think this actually is a magnetic fan. You can see the magnets. This board has a lot of those really slick connectors, which we're going to go into. We're going to learn about these at the same time, but I think what this will do actually, I'll put this aside. I'll show you guys in a bit. All right, so let's just put this aside for now. Okay, and then we're going to take a look at the rest. All right. I don't want to mess this up too bad because this is actually a sample from Asus and this has to go to someone else afterwards, and I don't want them to have like a horrible time, right? That wouldn't be fair. So then we have underneath here a membership card, a bottle opener, and then down here we have what looks to be a fan splitter, okay, a 1 to 3 PWM, and then another 1 to 3 PWM. So if you use your own fans for your case, that's nice to have. And we have two magnets. I'm not too sure what these are for yet, but we'll find out. Down here we have an RGB splitter. Right, these usually came with your, I think the Ryu 3s came with these. Not the Ryu 3s, some of the ROG AIOs, the Strix models. Then you have another, this is the essentially 6-pin to dual 3-pin ARGB header. It's on the side of the board, as with the other extremes. You get a Wi-Fi antenna, and you get these really nice, see, this is what I like. It's not, you know what, let me open it here for you guys. It's not like a flat black cable, and it's not like just a white plastic cable. It's actually a sleeved cable, and it's silver with white ends, right? Rather than just giving you black ends, they would white ends. So far, I'm really liking the attention to detail. You guys know me, I'm very much about attention to detail. And you get this 2 sets of these cables, and let's see what else we get here. All right. Okay, that just kind of comes up. It's kind of like a bento box, right? So, all right, these are going to be for M2 rubbers. All right, these are for if your NVMe isn't double-sided, right? You might want to use one of these just to make sure it has better contact. You get a couple of these. You get a ROG sticker badge, and what else? Another M2 rubber, some Q slides, right, for your M2s, and more M2 rubber. There's a lot. What's this? Additional thermal pads, right? So for the longer NVMe's. So you get a lot of NVMe accessories, and of course you get your Q Connect, right? So yeah, lots of thermal pads. Yeah, that's nice to see. So they definitely have taken care of us this time with that stuff. I do see, just right away, just from these splitters and everything, I can tell you there's more than the regular Extreme. That's for sure in terms of accessories. I actually have every ROG board of this generation, so I can show you guys compared to the regular Extreme in a second here. Ooh, that's pretty. That's some pretty stuff. So instead of just having, before, we used to have that mismatched black, right? Or I think they made a silver one for the Apex. Outside of that, this is nice. It's white, it's silver, it matches the board. And even the PCB for the DIMM.2 is white. That's also a nice touch. So I think they definitely took a lot of feedback from the community and try to make things match as nice as possible, right? And under here, we get an M2 card. Oh, good lord. Looks good, looks good, looks good. All right, so we get a PCIe 5 Hyper M2, all right? Silver, white, just like the board, and one tab click release. There's two down here, so they're both going to be Gen 5, right? So very nice. And of course, once again, white PCB, ROG. See, all these are very small details. And when you're spending like $1,200, you really want to see these kind of details, right? For those of you, I mean, even the pads are cut at the angle. So this is definitely for the ROG fans and the collectors, right? So yes, like I've said many times on the channel, you can buy a more budget-friendly board, just for the sake of just having it up and running. But for those of you that appreciate some of the finer things in life, this is always going to be an option for you. All right, so let me just quickly get all this stuff on the side and we'll take a look at the board itself. So with all that out of the way, let's take a look at the board itself. Okay, so if I peel this back, you're going to see that you're going to get the 5-inch LCD like the previous Extremes. This is going to be adjustable just like the previous Extremes, okay? But you guys do not get it wrong. This is not just a white Extreme. There are a lot of changes here, okay? We're going to go over that. So starting from the very top, you'll notice that this is going to be a magnetically removable cover, super slick. And behind here, we'll have your CPU 8 pins. Here you have your channel 1 CPU fan optional, and then CPU fan. And here, I believe, is your T1 sensor. And as we come here, we got the DIMM slots, right? All of this, the memory, you're going to have the same NitroPath technology you've had before. It does support up to 256 gigabytes, but keep in mind that is going to be CPU dependent, okay? I cannot stress that enough. It is always going to be CPU dependent on how high you can run those speeds. Okay, so then moving on to the poster, you'll see that not only is it not a black poster, it's a white poster with a white background. That is super nice. And the buttons are not plastic. These buttons are metal. The start and flex key, which traditionally have been plastic, are metal. And then here we have the ARGB water pump, channel fan, 24 pin, right? You get your internal Cs, you get 2 of them, 20 gigabytes, and then your PD quick charge. Right, this is for if you want to use, I think, like 30-watt charging. I don't know off the top of my head, but if you want to use your front panel from your computer case to charge your phone or whatever, having connected to one of these, you're going to have to plug this in. Okay, and then you get your internal 3, and then another fan header, and then another 3. And if I were to come down here, I'm going to actually have to remove this cover. I believe it's magnetic. Yep. So there's another magnetic cover. Earlier, you guys remember there was 2 magnets in the box? Well, that's for if, let's say, I start plugging in stuff here and I don't have space, I can put those 2 magnets here and I can stack them and that'll give me more height, right? So I'll show you guys. So those 2 magnets come in like this and they'll give you more height so you don't end up having to not be able to put this thing back if you plug things in. That's a very nice attention to detail there. Okay, so down here we're going to have our, what is that? That is the rad fan. Okay, you have your reset and safe boot button, and then your water pump 2 header, and then here you have your 3 USB 2s. I think most of the Neo boards have 3 USB 2s. I know the Dark Hero does as well. This is important for guys. Our AL takes up 1, our front panel sometimes takes up 1, and then you want to have a display in your case that takes up another 1. So it's nice to see we have that covered here. Right, and then you have your CMOS battery, obviously. You have SATA 1, 2, 3, 4. So rather than it being on the sides, it's over here. And if you notice in the box, they were 90-degree SATA cables. So you don't have to worry about going out and buying SATA cables that are 90 degrees so you can put the cover back on. It's in the box included. Okay, so then we have your ARGB, 1, 2 of them, right? And then we have your front side bus up, down, right? And I can't really see what that is. I think that's a BIOS switch. And I'm not too sure what that is. I have to take a look at it. And then you have your front panel auto. And then we come down here to the back. We have your BIOS, right? Your BIOS flashback button, your courtesy mouse. Once again, these buttons are metal. They're not plastic. Think about that, right? That's really, really nice. I'm not sure if that's because this is the 20th year. This is not a 20th year anniversary board, just so you guys know that. It may look like it may feel like it when you get one, but I guarantee you it's not the 20th anniversary board. Okay? Not that I've seen it. I'm just saying. I'm not saying there is one. I'm just saying that I asked and it's not. Okay? So, here we have 10 gigabit USB-Cs, and then you will notice you have 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I'm sorry. 1, 2. So 2 40 gigabit USBs, and then 2 more 10s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 regular 10 gigabit USBs, and dual 10 gigabit LAN. Okay. I think with the Extreme we had a 10 gigabit and a 5 gigabit, right? So with the Neo boards, Asus has kind of upped the LANs. I think the base now is 5 gigabyte instead of the 2.5. I think that some of that is community feedback, but obviously it's nice to see. I mean, these are premium products. We want to see those kind of things, right? Even if we can't use it, it's not about if you can use it, because most people, I guarantee you, don't have a full 10 gigabit LAN network at home. All right, some people don't have it, but it's good to have it so that in the future, if you do make changes to your home network or stuff like that, you do have that availability as an option. So then you have your Wi-Fi 7, your sound output. These do light up, right? They've been lighting up for years. And if we come to the back, we get a nice, hefty white backplate that says Glacial. It's just, and I have to say, guys, the PCB, the metal, it's so hard for a whiteboard to look white. Because often they look creamish, they look silverish, or some of the parts on the plastic is not white. And it's just, I think they use the minimal amount. So if we come through here, right? So like this is aluminum, and there is almost no plastic on the front side of this board for the most part, outside of this stuff, right? And I think that really helps in kind of tying in the whites, because you'll notice that, for example, the plastic on this white is not exactly the same type of bright white as the metal cover. And that's understandable because they're different materials. But it's very hard to do that, right? And I think they did a good job of keeping some of the silver so it doesn't look like a mess of 20 different whites. You understand what I mean? And for those of you curious what this is AIO Connect Q. Now, we don't have any AIOs on the market right now that support that, but the Strix LC that you guys did see at Computex, I'll put a photo up. Not Computex, CES, I'll put a photo up of it. That will support this. And what this allows for you to do is that you no longer have to have like that USB wire at the bottom. You don't need to plug it in. The power, all the data information is going to come through this AIO-Q connector over here, which is super slick, which is why those AIOs, when we saw them, the photos from CES, they had no wires, and it's because of that. Okay? So now, let's get to the fun part. So this portion is going to be, it might be a little bit confusing. It's confusing just when I just quickly read through the kind of sales documentation. It was a little bit confusing, but let's just go through it. So first of all, this is going to be a magnetic cover. All right, so earlier I had grabbed the fan, right? So this fan actually just comes in like this, and it magnetically attaches. And I'll give you a side profile shot, right? So you can see like that. You're probably wondering, why do you need a fan there? Well, for those of you that are not aware, DDR5 is very temperature sensitive, especially running at higher speeds, and especially if you have 4 sticks next to each other. So when you have this DDR5 going over a certain temperature, you're going to run into some instability. And having a fan here cools that, right? And you kind of get the benefits of that, right? So that's why there's a fan. And this is going to be obviously controllable, right? So, because you see the contact pins, right? It's not just like, power. Okay, so then if we come to here, you'll see this locking mechanism. Okay, so the top lock is going to be an unlock, right? So when we put this in the top position, this is going to be able to come off. This is magnetic, so this is going to come off no matter what, I think. So even the second position is going to come off. What this lock actually does is actually for the PCIe slots. All right, so I'm going to show you guys. So I'm going to remove this as well, right? And you can kind of see the working mechanism here. So I'll actually zoom in the camera. So let's take a closer look at the locking mechanism. All right, this looks super cool. So it might be a little confusing, so I'm going to try to explain it to the best of my ability. All right, so when you have it in the center position, your expansion slots are locked, as in meaning you're not going to be able to remove the expansion card you put inside. So when you put it into position 1, you're unlocking position 1. So the position 1 at this point can be inserted or removed. Okay, when you put it into open 2, right, the bottommost most. Right, bottom slot 2 is going to be open for insertion and removal. So this isn't going to be not the same as Q release. Right, Q release, there was none of this. You just pulled out. I don't know why they stopped using that. I guess there was some media attention about people having issues. But as someone who has every ROG board, Strix board, Tough board in the lineup, and I'll be honest, guys. I mean, I put these systems together nonstop all the time. I've never had a scratch, all right? And I think I know why, because I've actually seen on social media people doing this. They're pulling from the back. I cannot stress to you, when you remove an expansion card, you pull from the I/O side like this, right? You do not pull from the back. You pull from the front. I don't know why people would think they could pull from the... Some things cannot be explained. But that is something I've seen people actively do, like on video and social media, and I've seen people actually ask which direction. And just keep in mind, the locking mechanism is in the rear. So if you're pulling on something from the rear, you're pulling on the lock, right? You have to pull from the front. And I guess just to avoid that situation in general, they've come back to the button and the whatever. It is what it is. Sometimes, common sense will stifle innovation. Right, lack of common sense. Zooming out a little bit side by side, I apologize for the reflection of the light above. Can't really be helped. But you can see that these boards are actually significantly quite different, right? This is obviously a much more premium aesthetic, aside from the fact that it's white. A couple things I did want to mention, I forgot to mention earlier. This cover, which, once the system is in use, you can actually see it only really by default exposes the top slot, which makes sense for most folks. Right, you can mount this. It's magnetic, so you have magnets on the back. You can mount this on your PC case. If you have an aluminum case, I'm sorry, but if you have a steel case, it shouldn't be a problem. Most computer cases are steel, so you can mount this as a display. On the Chronox that's coming out, there's actually a section for you to stick this onto specifically, if you didn't want to use the LCD that's coming out. So you do have an option for this as a display. You can put it on your fridge if you want, but whatever. But that's a nice touch. And you can see here, there is a really big difference here, right? This board, I think, comes in at 1,000, right? And this is 1,200. So you see things like these, the plastic buttons. Okay, this cover, which is non-existent here. When you pick up this board, do not pick it from the top. This is a magnetic cover. You will drop your motherboard, so do not pick it up from the top. Okay, so you can see, just the covers. Some of the, if we come to the side, a lot of this is going to be somewhat similar, but just done in a much cleaner way, right? So I'm sorry for the black not really showing up, but it's just done in a much cleaner way. So it's not the same board in terms of layout. It's not the same board in terms of the PCB. And if we come to the side here, you can see that, we lose the HDMI out as well. So you will need a dedicated GPU for this, unless you want to use one of the USB-C to DisplayPort adapters. But you can see here, there is a wide difference, right? The 10 gigabit versus 5 gigabyte versus 1010 here. The metallic button, the metal buttons, etc. So for the upcharge, you also didn't get I don't think you got an NVMe card with this. I don't believe you do. I have to double check. I don't believe you got one of those NVMe cards that I got here. That card also, by the way, if you plug that into this board, the expansion card that I showed earlier, you will cut it to X8 because that does need X8 to run, right? There's 2 NVMe's in there. Even if you use one, you're still going to cut it because, like I was saying earlier, this bottom slot is actually going to run at Gen 3 X4 if you choose to do so. Okay, so if you choose to keep this at X16, this will run at X3 Gen 4. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So with that said, just wanted to quickly bring in the regular Extreme just to show you guys real quick. Try to put maybe a bureau of it somewhere just so you can get a better idea of the differences. If I would say if you have the Extreme board already, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, for the regular consumer, if you have this already, to then spend the money, you know, at this point, if you're buying $1,000 motherboards, usually you should have a level of disposable income that it's not that big of a deal, ideally speaking. Okay, so all right. So, I mean, like I said, you can even see the small details like the ROG guy here. I mean, there's a lot of attention to detail on this board. For example, like here it just says Supreme FX like they always do. If I come here, you'll see that says 2006. For those of you that aren't huge ROG fans, 2006 is actually when ROG started. Okay, the first ROG motherboard was a Crosshair AM2. Okay, and this is a Crosshair, right? So it's a nice callback. So for the huge ROG fans, like I said, this like me for example, this is a no-brainer. Literally no-brainer. But all right, so let's go into the BIOS before I gush on. Guys, so now we're in the BIOS. You'll notice right away this BIOS splash screen is actually white. I don't know if this is going to be ongoing for all the white motherboards, but I do know if you look at the 1900 AI router, that login UI is also white instead of the gray for Asus, black and red for ROG traditional non-white. But you also notice on the side here, these are no longer just numbers. This is actually a bar graph. I think the jump to 64 megabytes for the BIOS has kind of added some, you know, room for more graphical UI elements. You'll notice there's a nice rainbow coloring strip rather than just a solid red highlight. So a lot of these are just UI changes. You'll see some icons on the side. Yeah, like stuff like this has changed. This is new, right? But let's see what else. I'm thinking they're probably using this space not really so much to increase the settings we have here, but probably make it more for some UI elements. So let's take a look at Q Dashboard. So if we look at Q Dashboard, oh, there's a filter now. So now this is new. Rather than just highlighting around, we can actually filter down to what we need. So if we say USB, it's going to show me only USB, right? And for those of you that don't know, the green dots is actually you have something plugged into there. If you don't have something plugged into there, it's just going to be gray. So that's new, coming back out. I think if they were to add anything, it might be in easy mode. So let's take a look at easy mode. All right, so here we go. So in easy mode, you now have something that looks very much like what you had in Armory Crate. I think you had something similar prior on the other ones. I have a 1900X3D in here just for testing of this. And you have Expo on off. So this is very easy mode. If you buy a board like this, if you just bought it for the aesthetics, that's fine. But I would say, you know, if you're an enthusiast, you know, try to learn the stuff in the BIOS, especially when you drop this much money. It doesn't hurt, right? So let's see. We can go to boot menu. Let's see what the easy mode boot menu looks like. I actually don't have anything set in, so I don't think it's going to take me to a boot menu. Yeah, there you go. That makes sense. So let's see what else. If we come to, what about fan monitor? What is onboard dev? Okay, so that takes me back to advanced. So what about fan monitor? Or QFan configuration. All right, so this is the standard way of looking at it, but let's just go to easy mode. Can we go to fan control? Oh, there we go. So we go to fan. Okay, so this is new. This redo undo. I don't remember having that before. And I think I had channel 2 fan in, right? So let's just try that feature. Can we just click that? No, well, sorry. First I gotta hit manual. So now we have a couple manual profiles too. You have manual profile 1, 2, and 3. We didn't have this before. Before we only had this for pretty much only one profile. And, you know, now you can do multiple, you can do undo, redos. So the fan control has gotten a lot better. I personally don't like QFan inside the software, whatever that's called. I think it's a mess. And here we go. You can actually undo, right? That's new. You can undo. And you can also save too. So that's what you get. Oh, okay. So you can save this to manual 1, 2, 3 and save it to all. So I guess you can overwrite all your profiles. Now, one thing I've always wanted was for them to add the ability to save a profile to multiple headers. That would be useful. I don't see that here yet. I don't see that anywhere. But yeah, so you guys get all the DIMM sensors, DIMM 1, DIMM 2. Right. So I don't have any drives plugged in right now, guys, which is why you're not seeing anything there. But you can see here, there's some quality of life improvements for this stuff. I think fan control on Asus motherboards has gotten so good to this point now that, I mean, for years it's kind of been, especially if you're willing to go into the BIOS, always do the fan control in the BIOS. Do not do it through Armory Crate. I've always found that to be not ideal. But yes, once you have it set up in the BIOS, it actually works really well that you don't need an external fan controller. Obviously, if you're using Lanley fans, then you should still set them in the BIOS and just have it use the BIOS settings. But okay, so everything else here looks about, let's see, anything new? So it says BIOS 4.1. So what if I go to general help? Okay, it just tells me navigation keys. All right, so I guess, what is essential mode? I don't remember seeing this. Essential mode. All right, so this is also new. This just kind of shows you the basics things you need and nothing more than that. Huh, interesting. This doesn't actually look like the Glacial. It doesn't look like a Glacial. I'm wondering in Armory Crate if they actually will update that kind of silhouette to look like the Glacial or not. But GPU boost, I'm guessing that's manual mode. AI cache mode, turbo gaming mode. Okay. All right. So I think this is GPU boost is really just, I forgot what it's called off the top of my head. But yeah, so that is essential mode. Okay, so they've added 3 modes, but nonetheless, you can kind of, easy tuning. This is AI up to, okay, so this is just the skinning of things that already exist. All right, so, but nonetheless, you can see that there is some changes in the BIOS, and it's actually done pretty nice. I think it's about time that, we went from just more than the black and red. So with that said, let's take a look at the system itself, and I'll give you guys, the test system I have built here. We'll take a look at the screen, and then we'll just kind of close this video out with a general conclusion. So let's take a look at inside Armory Crate. Overall, the dashboard, you'll notice, is themed white. This is very nice to see. They did do this for the Miku as well, where it was themed Miku style. So given the, it's nice to always have these kind of Easter eggs when you do these kind of special versions, right? I'm not sure how special this is, but it is nonetheless, it is a Glacial, and that is something, not out of the normal lineup, right? So my most curious thing coming here is really not so much, let's see, let's look at Fan Expert. I expect this to look kind of the same as all the others, right? Sometimes Armory Crate is a little bit slow. All right, so this is nothing new. The 5-inch LCD display is probably the main thing I want to look at. You'll notice here we have this kind of multi-info we had before. For those of you curious, if only this one can you have 4 sensors and 5 sensors. If you pick another one, right, you're going to be limited to 3. Now, they only have this one for multi, and unfortunately, they did not make it silver, white, or whatever to match the board. I'm hoping they will do that in the future, or at least in the new theme. That will give it as feedback. But this is software, so there's always a chance that it will just come down later. When they first announced the Extreme boards with the LCDs, we had very limited options. I think this was the only option, right, on launch, right? I remember that. And here we can upload your own image, right? And of course, you can upload your animation. I think the image supports GIF. Yeah, JPEG. Well, you can do a moving JPEG. But yes, so you can do kind of have your customization here. Let's see. We're going to be able to rotate. Okay, so no, we still don't have that kind of landscape orientation rotation. Obviously, I can understand how that may be difficult with the stock images because they would have to be resized. They have to make new versions of them. But I think for custom images, you can, I guess you can always upload it yourself in that orientation. But it'd be nice to see if they can implement that kind of orientation for the hardware monitor. For even, even if your board is just mounted like in BTX upside down format or something, like inverted, right? Just something to kind of give users a little more choice. So I will bring that to your attention. Hopefully they'll implement that at some point. With that said, just quick wrap up on the board. At the price point, as I've mentioned before, this comes in at $1,200. I think there's a bundle on Newegg right now for the 99850X, and it drops it down by like $179. So you can save some money there. I'll put a link to that bundle. But anyway, I mean, the bundle's still there. But from my perspective, I think, it's an expensive product, but it's very nice. And, each AIB has it, right? You have the Extreme on Aorus,
You have the Godlike on MSI, and this actually I think comes in less than the MSI, which is nice to see. These boards, they don't have the margin that people think they do. I've actually asked them, but I can't tell you that information, but I can tell you that the margin is not as high as you expect. So, and they're always low production run on the Extreme. They are never produced to full demand, meaning they make less of them than people will, like more people want, right? Unless it's like the Z890, which just has extremely difficult sales due to it being, I mean, the Intel chips are really nice, to be honest with you. The 285K is a really nice chip, especially when you're talking about multi-use productivity, not gaming, right? Even if you're gaming at 4K, it doesn't even matter. It's still a great chip. But, you know, Tech Press is always click grabby with the gaming headlines, which is so small when it comes to evaluating a CPU. But it is what it is. With that said, I hope you guys found this video useful. I know it dragged on quite a bit, but I feel if you were going to spend the money on this motherboard, you would like to see a little more than just, hey, I took it out of the box, here you go. All right. So with that said, thanks for watching. Stay safe and take care.